Welcome to Notebook Nuggets. Today, you're joining us as we really get into the book Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, it's a monster of a book, packed with stuff.
Totally. Think of this as your personal guide, sort of to understanding the core ideas, the routines, the thought processes of just over 200 world-class performers. We're talking athletes, thinkers, billionaires.
A real mix. And we've kind of sifted through all that info to pull out the nuggets, the really useful bits that hopefully you can use to elevate your own life, whatever you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our mission today is basically to extract those essential blueprints for, success and well-being that these titans figured out and just lay them out for you.
Okay, so let's dive right in. A really fundamental idea in the book is this principle that success, it leaves clues, patterns.
Right.
The book really pushes you to look closely at the tactics, the routines, the habits of people who achieved amazing things.
And the idea is you can spot similar strategies and maybe try them yourself.
Precisely. It's about finding those potential blueprints, as Ferriss calls them, and then, this is the crucial part, actually putting in the work to, build them in your own life.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just reading about what cool people do, isn't it? All right, Derek Sivers makes this great point.
Oh yeah, the Sivers quote.
He says something like, if information was the answer, we'd all be billionaires with six-pack abs.
Yeah, that's the one. It really nails that gap between just knowing something and actually doing something about it.
And that links to his analogy, the donkey one.
The don't be a donkey idea. It's pretty vivid, right? Picture this donkey standing exactly halfway between like a bucket of hay and a bucket of water.
Okay.
And it can't decide which one to go for first, so it just stands there, getting hungrier and thirstier, paralyzed.
Right, analysis paralysis, we've all been there.
Exactly. Sivers uses it to show how we get stuck sometimes. Overthinking, creating these false choices, these either-or situations. The takeaway is often you can do both things, maybe just one after the other. You don't have to pick just one path forever.
That's actually really freeing to think about, especially when decisions feel huge. Okay, let's shift focus a bit. Tony Robbins comes up a lot regarding mindset and dealing with challenges. He talks about our brains like old programming.
Yeah, the ancient survival software. It's a useful frame. Robbins points out our brains evolved mainly to keep us alive, right? Not necessarily to keep us happy all the time. And he suggests that a lot of our suffering, our unhappiness, it comes from what he calls a me focus, constantly feeling like we've lost something or we have less than others or things will never get better.
Loss, less, and never. Yeah, that definitely rings true. You can almost feel those sometimes.
Absolutely, we all can.
So, okay, if that's the problem, what does Robbins say is a better way to handle things when they go wrong?
Well, this is key. His big advice is, don't try to solve problems when you're feeling awful, when you're in that negative state.
Okay, so what do you do?
He argues you need to first shift your state, actively get yourself feeling better, maybe move your body, focus on gratitude, something positive before you even attempt to find solutions.
Why?
Because when you're negative, your perspective just shrinks. All you see are more problems, not possibilities. You need that positive state to open up your thinking.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's hard to be creative or find solutions when you're just feeling down or stressed.
Yeah.
Another really interesting theme was about building connection, like with an audience. Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans idea.
Yes, that's such an insightful concept. Kelly argues that building really deep, genuine connections with maybe a smaller but super dedicated group, that can be way more effective and sustainable than just chasing massive, shallow popularity.
So quality over quantity.
Exactly. His theory is if you can find and nurture 1,000 true fans, people who genuinely love your work, who'll buy pretty much anything you produce and who'll tell their friends about it.
They become advocates.
Right. Then you can actually build a really successful and probably more fulfilling career or project. It flips the script from pleasing everyone to deeply serving a core group.
It really challenges that whole go viral or go home mentality, doesn't it? Okay, the book also gets into some pretty unconventional stuff for like physical and mental resilience. Wim Hof, the Iceman, definitely stands out.
Oh, for sure. Hof's story is wild. It really showcases the kind of potential our bodies and minds have. He uses these specific methods, breath work and controlled cold exposure.
The ice baths and stuff.
Yeah, and his feats are incredible enduring extreme cold. His whole philosophy is about the body's ability to adapt and even thrive under controlled stress. The book touches on his breathing technique, basically rounds of deep, fast breathing followed by holding your breath. And the physiological effects are pretty profound. Things like boosting oxygen levels, maybe reducing inflammation. It's fascinating stuff.
It really is amazing what you can train the body to do.
Yeah.
Shifting slightly, but related maybe. Tim Ferriss himself is known for asking really good questions on his podcast, right? And the book shares some of those.
Definitely. And the power of these questions is they make you think. They spark introspection, new perspectives, whether you're asking yourself or someone else.
Like what kind of questions?
Well, things like, when you think of the word successful, who's the first person who comes to mind and why? Or, here's a good one. What is something you believe that other people think is insane?
Whoa, okay, that last one. That could reveal a lot.
Totally. It often gets to core values, unique viewpoints. Just sitting with questions like that can be really revealing.
I can imagine. And for anyone listening who gets stuck creatively, like writer's block or something similar, Rick Rubin has this really simple technique.
Yeah, it's brilliant in its simplicity. Rubin's advice for breaking through that block, or really any overwhelming task, is just focus on the absolute smallest possible action. Write one word, play one note, just the tiniest first step. He calls it the smallest domino.
Get that first one to fall?
Exactly. It builds momentum. It breaks that initial inertia, that resistance to starting, which is often the hardest part.
Like tricking your brain almost. Huh. Okay, so across all these interviews Ferriss did any common habits or themes pop up among these, ultra successful people?
Yes, definitely. And it's interesting because they come from such different fields. Some key patterns Ferriss noticed were things like a lot of them have some kind of daily mindfulness practice, like meditation.
Okay, that comes up a lot these days.
It does. Also, a tendency to do spec work, basically investing their own time and money into projects they believe in before anyone asks them to or pays them.
Kind of betting on themselves.
Exactly. It shows initiative, passion. Another thing is a core belief that failure isn't permanent. It's not the end of the story.
Right, just a setback.
Yeah. And linked to that, many seem really adept at leveraging their weaknesses, sometimes even turning them into strength. Not just ignoring them, but using them somehow.
That's interesting. Not just fixing weaknesses, but leveraging them. And you mentioned the view on failure.
Yeah.
The book talks about reframing it, right?
Yeah, that's a huge mindset shift discussed in the book. The idea is to stop seeing failure as this terrible endpoint and instead see it as just an outcome, data, information you can learn from.
Like a learning opportunity.
Precisely. And the book gives great examples, people like Seth Godin, Ferriss himself, even Colonel Sanders. Think about how many rejections they face.
Oh, man, the Colonel Sanders story. Wasn't it like over 1,000 no's for his chicken recipe?
Something like that. It's incredible. It just shows the power of resilience, of not taking failure as final. They saw setbacks as lessons.
That persistence is amazing. Okay, another powerful idea was about focusing on systems, not just goals. Scott Adams talks about this.
Right. Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, his line is something like, losers have goals, winners have systems.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It means shifting your focus from just staring at the finish line, the goal, to building the process, the daily habits, the routines that will reliably move you forward.
So focus on the journey, the how, not just the destination.
Yeah, pretty much. It's about building sustainable processes. Goals are good for direction, maybe, but the system is what actually gets you there day after day.
That feels more manageable, actually. More about what you do today. We also saw this theme of, embracing what makes you unique. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a great example in the book.
Oh, absolutely. Arnold's whole strategy really was just being unapologetically Arnold, even when, his accent, his physique, everything went against the Hollywood grain at the time.
He didn't try to fit in.
Not at all. He created his own niche. He ignored the people telling him it wouldn't work, and that uniqueness became his superpower, It highlights how standing out authentically can be way more powerful than conforming.
Takes guts, though.
Yeah.
Especially when people doubt you. Related to taking action, Triple H apparently makes a really clear distinction between dreams and goals.
Yeah. It's a simple but important reminder. Basically, differentiate between stuff you just passively fantasize about dreams and the things you're actually putting effort towards every single day. Those are actionable goals.
Making that distinction is probably the first step to actually achieving something.
It often is, knowing what you're truly committed to working on.
Which leads right back to that core idea of consistent action. Ferriss himself says it's not what you know, it's what you do consistently.
Exactly. All the knowledge in the world doesn't help if you don't apply it. It's those daily habits, that consistent effort, even when it's small, that really shapes things over time. That's what builds momentum and leads to real progress.
Totally. Okay, thinking about health and well-being, the book seems to push against rigid formulas, right? People like Justin Major and James Fadiman emphasize a more personal approach.
Yeah, very much so. Their perspective is really about encouraging you, the listener, to be your own health detective, essentially. Move away from the one-size-fits-all diets or routines.
So listen to your body. Experiment.
Exactly. Pay attention to signals, try different things, see what actually works for you. It's about personalization, not just following the latest trend blindly.
That makes a lot of sense, biologically even. We're all different. The book also brings up just the basics, hard work and mindset. Chris Sacca's story touches on this.
Yeah, Sacca talks about his early lessons, learning the value of just plain hard work, putting in the hours, and alongside that, the importance of keeping a positive outlook, being resilient, especially when things get tough. That combination is powerful.
Hard work and optimism.
Okay.
And then there are examples of people who really had to step outside the box, take risks. Shaun White, Peter Diamandis.
Right. Their stories show that sometimes to achieve something really big or innovative, you have to be willing to deviate from the norm, to resist peer pressure maybe, and embrace calculated risks. You can't always play it safe if you want breakthroughs.
Makes sense. You got to push boundaries. On the creative side, Seth Godin and Evan Goldberg had an interesting take on authenticity.
Yeah, the philosophy seems to be about using everything from their own lives, their experiences, even the stuff others might shy away from, like their naughty humor, as fuel for creativity.
Yeah.
That authenticity is what connects with people.
Using your real self, warts and all, as creative material. I like that. And Brene Brown's work adds another layer, right, about discomfort.
Oh, hugely important. Brown talks about the courage involved in vulnerability and this key idea that feeling uncomfortable, even feeling pain sometimes, isn't necessarily bad. It often signals that you're growing, you're learning, you're stretching yourself.
So lean into the discomfort sometimes.
That's the idea, seeing it not as something to always avoid, but maybe as a signpost for growth.
Huh, okay. And what about just simple stuff like thinking and asking questions? The book stresses self-reflection.
Yeah, and not being afraid to ask the dumb questions. Sometimes the biggest insights come from questioning the basic assumptions everyone else takes for granted. Keep asking why. Keep reflecting.
Always be curious.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, for people wanting to be more productive, learn faster. Noah Kagan had some practical tips.
Yeah, Kagan's big on deliberately scheduling time just for learning, blocking it out in your calendar, and then being ruthless about minimizing distractions during that time, really protecting that focus.
That dedicated learning time. Makes sense.
It's crucial for deep work, deep learning.
And speaking of protecting time, saying no comes up a lot too, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's a recurring theme. The ability to strategically say no to things, even good opportunities, if they don't align with your main priorities, that's presented as a critical skill for protecting your energy and focus for what really matters.
Hard to do sometimes, but necessary.
Very. And finally, the book touches on cultivating inner calm, managing desire.
Also.
Well, insights on staying centered under pressure, being mindful of how our desires can sometimes lead to unhappiness if they're unchecked, developing that inner equilibrium. And related to that is this idea of strategic deloading.
Deloading, like in weightlifting.
Kind of. The principle is similar. Intentionally stepping back, taking breaks, resting before you burn out. It's about building in recovery to sustain performance and creativity long-term, not just grinding constantly.
Building a sustainable rhythm.
Okay.
And the book wraps up with some more challenging questions.
Yeah, some real mind benders designed to shake up your thinking. Like, what if I did the opposite of my usual routine for 48 hours, just to see what happens?
Whoa. Okay, that could be interesting. Or terrifying.
Right. And also this practice of finding the good in a bad situation, actively looking for the positive takeaway or that opportunity, even when things seem objectively negative, training that good mindset.
So, wow. As you can tell, Tools of Titans is it's a goldmine. A huge collection of wisdom from people at the top of their game.
Absolutely. And the common thread, it seems, isn't always about some magical innate talent. It's more about consciously built habits, developing a resilient mindset, being willing to experiment, learn from mistakes.
And just consistently doing the work.
Yeah.
We've really only skimmed the surface today, pulling out some highlights from this massive resource.
Definitely. And the great thing about the book is how it's structured almost like a buffet. You don't have to swallow it whole. You can just pick and choose the ideas, the tools that really resonate with you right now.
Yeah, find something that clicks for your current situation.
Exactly. And start experimenting. Maybe it's a mindfulness practice. Maybe it's asking yourself one of those tough questions. Maybe it's just reframing how you look at a recent setback.
So we really hope you'll take some time to think about these nuggets we discussed. How might they apply to your life, your goals, your challenges right now? What stood out? What questions did it spark for you?
Because, really, this deep dive is just the beginning, right?
Yeah.
The real value comes when you take these ideas off the page or out of this discussion and start weaving them into your own life, your own notebook.
Well said.
Okay, so maybe a final thought to leave everyone with, something to chew on. Consider one area in your life right now where maybe you feel a little stuck or things aren't moving how you'd like, inspired by everything we've talked about from these titans. What's just one small, maybe seemingly insignificant action you could take in the next, say, 24 hours? Something that might just shift your perspective a tiny bit or create even a little bit of positive momentum in that area.